So a word of welcome and a word of thanks to the employees and the advocates and those who work currently or visit the Roderick Ireland Courthouse, and of course to the general public who from time to time might have reason to come through these doors. Upon the request of the Hampden County Bar Association, which I have the highest personal and professional regard for, they have asked me to intervene. So the request that I am making is of the Department of Labor and OSHA and the Environmental Protection Agency. Both have been made aware of my interest and so far have responded favorably. We intend here to follow the science of what's happened, not to offer any opinions until we know exactly what the conclusions are. The study that was independently completed in February did indicate that there was considerable toxic mold throughout portions of the building. On a personal level, I knew Bob Coomer very well through my earliest days in public life, and Bill Boyle was one of my best friends. And I think that we want to, again, carefully examine the issues that have been brought to bear, not only by the Bar Association, by the many employees, and those who visit the courthouse, including prospective jurors who might come through. I think that that's a consideration. So protecting the public health, safety, and the welfare of these employees and visitors is of paramount interest to me. I have been in touch personally with the Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, who's an old friend of mine, and we have been in touch as well with EPA. So we want to make sure on the jurisdictional issues that there's a consistency. And I hope that in the contact that we had with Secretary Walsh, he seemed very comfortable with the request that was being made. Now, there have been 5 deaths through the building from ALS, and there have been more than 60 cancer diagnoses over these past 2 decades. Again, I offer no opinion until the evidence comes forward. DCAM has indicated that they are prepared to act upon rehabilitation. A reminder, that's a decision for the governor and the state legislature to make. And we intend on that basis, however, to follow through. I will, just having the advantage of the perspective on public life for a considerable period of time, I remember when the Hall of Records sat here. It was one of the most beautiful buildings. It was very much like where the Registry of Deeds was previously located. And I recall at the time when the decision was made to build the courthouse, there were many of us who questioned its location. We thought a presence in the central business district at that time might have made more sense, but that's a separate issue. So currently, I'm reminded that this building is number 22 on DCAM's list for new building. And again, that's a judgment that our legislators, so I know some of whom are here today, will make with the governor. You can't ignore the evidence, however, of the following. The Register of Probate has said that she's working to minimize the number of employees in the building. Sheriff Cochee has indicated that he now will not bring those he has custody over into the building. District Attorney Gallooni has moved his staff out to Bay State West, and Register of Deeds Cheryl Coakley Rivera has ordered her staff to work from their homes. And Rosemary Sacamani, I know, has been in touch with my office as well. So in addition to these employees, I think that we want to make sure that there's not a constitutional crisis where all of a sudden jurors decide that they don't want to visit this site. That's a very important consideration. And chose this forum here not because I wanted to trespass. This remains the responsibility of the state of Massachusetts, and witnessing what they intend to do will be important. But I think also offering an independent assessment that comes from the federal government where permissible should be our current undertaking. So, questions?
Do you know what steps those agencies are going to take?
No, I know I can tell you with a win, I think Secretary Walsh made it pretty clear that he was going to get after this right away. And on the EPA front, I assume that they will do the following.
They'll be doing what specifically?
Well, amongst my many abilities, I don't profess to know more about that than they do.
But you're asking for essentially a workplace safety investigation?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we're asking for cooperation from the federal government, which has, let's be candid, more tools than anybody else does when it comes to these sorts of issues. Whether it's inside the courthouse, outside the courthouse, the federal government has a long reach.
Long term, is there federal funding for new courthouse?
I'm not going to presuppose that, largely because that's a responsibility of the state. So anticipating that question would come up, it is not my intention to have the federal government build a new courthouse for the state. We built one, by the way, a pretty nice one, at 300 State Street.
What are the short-term solutions for people who are only worried about coming to work?
I leave it to the judgment of those agencies that are located here. I did outline some steps that have been currently taken by these individuals, and I think they're pretty consistent with the alarms that have been raised by the people who work inside the building.
What about the federal courthouse? Would that be a place for
Federal courthouse is full. We leave room for reporters to get in there, though. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable consideration for sure. Considering that you can't ask people to sit in judgment of others if they're frightened of their own well-being inside of the courthouse. I'm not sure that doesn't give much comfort to those who are being asked to hear testimony.
Also today, the VA released a report about closing down Leeds Medical Center. What can you do about it?
Well, it no longer resides in my congressional district. It's in the 2nd Congressional District. It did represent Northampton for 20 years, and we're going to make sure that they don't close that facility. I talked to Jim McGovern already on that, and asking our veterans to proceed to Newington, Connecticut, or to Boston, I think that's unreasonable.
The report also includes some beefing up of some services in Springfield and Pittsfield.
Well, you can do those in addition to, not as a substitute for.
Does it make a lot of sense since they've spent millions, tens of millions of dollars up there just recently on renovations, doing HVAC systems? Does it make sense to close it after?
You've just made the argument. I mean, I think it's similar to the other federal facilities in Western Massachusetts. Those facilities have been carefully invested in over a long period of time. Citing Westover and Barnes, there's two that come to mind. Those are, when you talk about modernity, those are in the best shape of any military base in the country. It's because of consistent federal funding for those operations. I think that's true of what happens at Leeds as well.
Can you talk about what role Congress will play in this operation?
It would need congressional approval, and it would need the signature of the president. So at the right moment, I would intend to raise this with the president himself. Pardon? Yes, we have. We've asked OSHA to intervene here, yes. No questions. OSHA has pretty broad authority over the workplace. I think the question about what EPA's responsibilities are inside of a state facility, we could have that tested, but I think at the same time OSHA has broad opportunity and responsibility. Well, immediately. I mean, I think that the employees who have now raised the level of concern that's keeping them from going to work every day, that doesn't serve any of us very well in our judicial system.
Congressman, if you were called for jury duty, would you feel comfortable going?
I have been called for jury duty in the past, yes. Fortunately, they sent me out the door.
Would you feel comfortable going in there for jury duty?
I don't know enough about it, but I would honor the request to be here for sure, and have in the past.
Why is this sort of coming back to the head and it having been such a long ongoing? We've been hearing stuff.
Yeah. I give credit to the Bar Association's request of me, and I know these people. I've known them my whole life. They're reasonable and honorable people. And when I got the letter from the Bar Association, I thought that beyond the press accounts, that it was important to act accordingly.